Welcome to the Redline Sales and Business Podcast, featuring Shane, CEO and founder at Ideas Exchange and CEO at Sales Driven. Each week we'll bring you advice, tips, and thoughts about sales, leadership, and share our experience on growing an effective business. Meet guests, enjoy the stories, and most importantly, have fun. This is Redline.
Hello guys, we are back again for the Redline podcast, and today we got Rob Turley, Rob Turley, the RevOps hitman Turley, and myself and Rob worked together many moons ago in his first startup where he was an AI extraordinaire, and now he's on to more fruitful offerings and more prosperous future. And we're here today because a lot of people don't know about RevOps and what it actually is for companies of a small size, medium size, big size. Maybe if you're starting a company, you might want to incorporate a model that revolves around RevOps. And we're going to cover a few of those items today. Rob is a very, very, very knowledgeable person in the space. I love working with him, and I'm very, very honored to have him here today because I think it will be of huge value to the people that do listen in. So without further ado, I'm in my MTV crib right now. How's that?
Gorgeous.
How's that for living life like a boss? Rob, introduce yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think you did a pretty good job. Rob Turley here, worked in AI, and through doing so, analyzing dozens of different industries' data, their entire business, you start learning a lot and seeing how things connect. So that's kind of the birth of RevOps. Also, since companies were so bad at tracking data, and it was so dirty and so sparse in so many ways, it made it so I had to learn. I was forced into that consulting position to understand businesses at their core level because they needed to restructure a lot in order to make it possible. And you start seeing just how disjointed all of the teams are, where nobody knows anything about anyone else and they're not actually working together. They're often pitted against each other, like sales and marketing are fighting constantly. CS and product are not communicating. They're innovating the wrong thing. Sales team is having trouble selling features to the target market that they never wanted in the first place because it was whatever was on the roadmap. So you start this disjointed approach creates a lot of problems. And my job essentially for revenue operations, and first I'll give you the definition of revenue operations because most people don't even know what it is. I think it's sales ops. It's not. It's the unification of all teams. What that means is that you're de-siloing a business. You're taking the divisions, which are quite literally divided, and having them work together in a data-driven, client-centric way. So everything revolves around the customer, and it's to optimize rather than reduce costs with regular cost reduction methods at the sacrifice of the customer service level, but rather improving the client experience while reducing costs, optimizing the process, generating revenue, albeit, right?
Awesome. So what do you think most people should know first when they start on their revenue operations journey? What's the first thing that they need to do?
So it would depend if it were to be a new company that's just starting out, a mid-market company that's been around for a little while, or an enterprise. But
Let me pause. Yeah, let's do this because most people that are going to listen to the podcast I'll give you an example. I had a wicked call yesterday. I woke up. No, sorry. It was in the middle of the morning. I've been staying up very late. I saw you've got a booking. A meeting's been booked. And I went to the meeting and somebody had booked a meeting. And then they want to spend money. And they said, we listened to the podcast. I'm starting my business. I need help. I want to learn where the first place is to start, and it's your customer. And I need help with that. And I said, no problem. So I think the category of people that are watching this are probably new business owners, people that are in either the 0 to 500K mark, perhaps the 500K to 2 million pound mark. They're probably somewhere in between, and they want to crack these glass ceilings, if that makes sense.
Or they were doing product marketing and don't have a sales function yet, or it's founder-led sales, and then they're moving into a sales team or an outsourced model.
I'm just going to make it easy. Just the company's revenue stream are between 0 and $1 million.
Sure. Okay. Well, so if you're starting out now, that means you're starting out. It's either you don't have a sales team, you have a small sales team, perhaps you have founder-led sales. You're trying to increase the revenue and break that glass ceiling, start to scale the company. This is when it is the most prime time to implement a RevOps process with data-driven protocols behind it. Why? Because when you don't have the insight into what it is that you're delivering, what it is that you're selling, and what it is that you're marketing, and having those things thread together, it creates a lot of issues and racks up technical debt. If anybody's not familiar, since new business owners, right? If you're not familiar with the term technical debt, it means that by taking action, by building out certain things, by putting Band-Aids on, you're actually creating debt because you have to undo that later on. And it's the larger the company gets, the faster you start moving, the more revenue you bring in, the more expensive it becomes to undo those mistakes. So it's creating a cohesive system that can grow with your company and is fully scalable. That's the key behind it. Because a lot of companies, as soon as they get past that 1 million marker, they can't scale their operations further and they have to restructure the entire business. And it's a total upheaval and insanely expensive to do.
Wow. Okay. That's, that's a lot to take in. So you be revenue operations, I want to ask you something that is really important to me is accelerated learning. And accelerated learning to me is failing very, very fast, but being able to bounce back and rebound from those failures with the learnings and do it 10 times quicker. That's how I've been able to sustain our business and how we are on an uphill rise right now. So what is the biggest failure you experience in your revenue operations career, or whilst being involved in that element of business? What was the biggest failure you came up against?
So putting off a problem, and this problem specifically was with the sales process. It was sales process architecture. There was an issue with it. We brought on, so there were more salespeople being brought into the equation, and we didn't restructure everything before bringing in the new people. And it caused absolute chaos because the processes were changing after they were already onboarded, trained, and everything like that. So everything they were taught was actually just stripped. And then they had to relearn it immediately. And it was terrible. Total disaster.
I think that's important. That is, all right. So I think you should dig deeper into that because that for me makes a ton of sense. And when you try to go fast, you typically get a bunch of technology and you go fast and then you just eat up data. And then you find out, why can't I track this?
Yeah. And you get a bunch of redundancies and they don't integrate, and then you have problems. So it's about taking that extra little bit of time, because I know that you like to move fast. Like you're the perfect example of someone who likes to move in the speed of freaking light. I'm the same way. So sometimes you need to take 2 steps back to take 1 step forward is the important part, because just structuring out what that tech stack is going to look like, making sure it all integrates, making sure all the connections are there, that the data structure is there, that all of the processes and steps are in place to train the team before you start bringing on more people to just rip out the carpet from underneath them. That extra step that may take a week or 2 is worth its weight in gold, because the number of problems that you will be able to altogether, not even just try to dodge, but altogether avoid, where you won't even run into those problems even the short term, all the way to the super long term. It is going to benefit you undoubtedly, be above and beyond.
Okay. Top three problems amongst that you came up against.
Well, a lot of backlash from the sales team, right? A lot of backlash from the CS team too. Everything just changed. Like, we just learned this. We're not doing it this way. So like actual revolt. So refusal. Because if you change it too quickly and you change all the rules like that, right after they got down the first set of rules, you are going to have a lot of problems with a lot of people, because most human beings cannot handle change at that speed, and they feel like they've been slighted.
I think we'll touch on this for a second, right? And that's moving at high speeds. I know you can do it because your brain, and myself and you're more of a tech-driven person, and I work in a different way. But being able to move at those speeds, it's not a lot of people said it was like, it's a problem. But I don't think it's a problem, because any fast growing business or business that experience exponential growth, the founders are not fucking working slow or pacing themselves. It's bullshit. Name one big company where they were like, yeah, let's pace ourselves.
Yeah, the only thing
It's a
I
bunch
could
of
think of
bullshit.
actually as an example that actually does apply there are financial like banks.
Yeah, well, okay, banks are very different kettle of fish. We're talking about
Like ultra traditional, extremely limited. Yeah, yeah. Those companies, yes, they will move slow because they have to by law, pretty much.
exactly. So when it comes to these situations where, so someone like me, I would love to move fast, change things very fast, implement new processes very fast, and just say, look, go make your life easier, just do it. And it was very hard for them to adopt. What was one thing that you tried or did differently that worked when you were helping some of your team members adopt to your fast moving processes? Like, what's one thing that worked when you was trying to implement that?
I'm going to start from the core, then I'm going to move out. It's not going to take that long for me to go through this. It all starts with the recruiting process and understanding their psychology to see if they're resistant to change or not. That's important, but that's a different conversation, different time. So it does start there.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have when you
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of change happening and you're moving at the speed of light, it's hard for people to catch up, especially if they don't have an entrepreneurial mindset or if they take a
Yep.
little while to understand things because they're not as fast of a learner. They can't just click on things like you and I do. That's a gift. Not a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people have that gift.
Yeah.
So taking a step
Yep.
back to look at the entire scenario, like stop everything, look at the scenario, understand what's going on, get a temp check of your team, actually talk to them, see what their needs are, see what the problems are, see what you could do to improve to make their life easier. So make it all about them. But then it's about sitting with them and helping them understand and learning at their own speed. But the most important part is creating almost like an enclosed or a closed circuit environment that gives them that consistency with the fast moving pace. So a lot of the moving parts you don't actually disclose or bring to the team until they've been completely fleshed out and tested by the founders or whoever else who can move fast. Then you introduce it slower and make sure they can get a grasp on it so that you can hold their hand as you let go of that rather than saying just do this. The other most important part as far as psychology is not just saying do this, it's better. People are going to revolt. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you can't tell me what to do. How do I know this even works? We just changed
Yep.
it. That's the problem. So it's most people, especially with salespeople, since you work with salespeople, use that as an example. You don't just tell a salesperson, track this data because we need it. They won't track it. It'll be a gap all the time. They'll do it for like a week and be like, screw this, I'm not doing it. Tell them why. How is this going to impact their pipeline? How is this going to impact the bottom line? How is this going to increase your commission? And why is it important to track it? Because what am I going to get in the future is a benefit and a self benefit at that. That's the missing piece that a lot of
Yep.
people just go do this. People need the reason why. Think about a little kid. If you say, oh yeah, uh, engines are based on combustion where gasoline ignites and then it creates the piston to move. Well, we go, well, why? Well, because it creates pressure in a chamber. Well, why? Because the piston has to move to create kinetic energy. Well, what? They'll keep asking why until you go, well, because why
Mm.
is a crooked letter? I don't freaking know. But it's that same type of
Yeah.
mentality when someone's learning something new, but an adult version of that. So you need to speak to that inner child in a way.
And a little bit of Sander in you that comes from good old Marky Mark, huh?
Who?
Marcus. Sander training. Inner child. Adult parent child.
To me, Marky Mark is Mark Wahlberg, literally.
Marky Mark is a dude. If a new founder or a founder that is wanting to go faster wants to try new things, 3 simple tips are: take a step back, hold back a few of the processes that you may want to implement until they're proven to work. When you are tracking data or trying to put some of these processes in front of new employees or existing employees or staff, help them understand in a very simple, childlike manner why this has to be and where those benefits lie, so it does make sense. And I think those types of learnings, this is what I mean. This is why I do this podcast, because those types of learnings are absolutely priceless and can cost you
They can
and
cost you your
hundreds of
entire
thousands.
business.
Yeah. So let's move on to that then. Let's move on to that next piece, which is like I said. So you got your biggest failure, and then the biggest learning that you've experienced from not putting those learnings in place whilst being you had your first startup. The things that you would not do again in that startup that now you have a new business, a fresh start that you are doing now. what kind of learnings would you share with people that are listening so they can kind of fast track their growth, their path to growth? What would you say those things would be?
Yeah. So one of them, it's actually a very unpopular opinion. You know, how my hashtag is
Mhm.
hashtag high volume is dead.
No.
Yeah, that's one of my hashtags. So quality over quantity approach. And you know, the reason you guys,
Mhm.
your team is so damn
I'd
good at
agree.
selling for other people is it's about who you're targeting. It's not about, okay, let's find where this fits. It's
Yeah.
manicuring it to them, creating those segmented markets and
Yep.
then being able to target them in a human way. It's not about get it in front of everybody. Demand generation is more of a consumer marketing type of a thing. It's not so much a B2B thing. It's about the relationships that you have, curating those and taking a longer term approach. It's not, we need
Yep.
money now. Yes, you do. Everybody fucking does.
Yeah.
It's
Of
about
course.
how can we ensure the lifetime and the revenue consistency from now up until the future. Future pipeline is more important than present pipeline. Though present pipeline is your immediate revenue, you don't want to cannibalize your future pipeline. You don't want to lose those relationships because they'll go buy from somebody else when they're ready. It's all about keeping that in play and then also creating a very cohesive partner program. So that way you can have the trifecta of your current pipeline, your future pipeline, and your partner pipeline feeding you at the same time for consistent revenue target, hitting the revenue target consistently by having hot leads coming into you, but also acquiring the cold leads to see what that market looks like. Also, when you're testing out a market, don't just a lot of marketing, like CMOs, what they'll say is that pick a market, go after it, see if it works. If it doesn't, move to another one. I actually speak against that. Taste test them, but get very specific. See where you start to get a lot of play, where they're open to having a conversation. But then after that step, if they're open to having a conversation, what is the propensity that they actually have a need that's going to drive them to convert in the first place? Do they need it? Are they just interested or do they actually need it to solve a problem? The other part that most people don't think about that I'm helping a few companies out with right now, yes, there's a need for it and it's well defined, but they're not aware, either aware of the problem or they're not aware that there's a solution for that problem. So they've accepted it at a deep psychological level that this is something that our industry deals with and there's no way out of it. And if anybody pitches me anything to fix it, they're a bullshit artist. There's no way that we could fix it. And that's just the reality we live in. They need to be actively looking for a way to solve it. It needs to be a thorn in their side. It needs to, as Marcus says, it needs to keep them up.
Mm. I don't think some of these problems keep many people up at night, though, honestly. So, like, I'll give you an example. I'm working with a marketing director at one of my biggest accounts, and they have tons of money, right? They have tons of money, and they are struggling with getting people into events. A lot of people are struggling with people getting their audiences or their target profiles, new business target profiles into these events. And we spoke, and the conversation around number of events happened. We've delivered two, one's coming up. Um, and one of the events went absolutely awful. Okay. The venue was supposed to be budgeted at 5 to 7,000. The room got booked out. Um, because the room got booked out, the only room that was left on the venue that we had subscribed the event for was two times the size and accommodated 100 people. Sorry, 100 to 150 people. But when the event is actually only 15 to 20 people, so
Oh,
it's
so it's
accommodating
going to feel
100 people.
empty.
No, that's number one. But then also there's a minimum spend and there's a minimum drink spend. So the actual venue and the dinner and the meal, everything ended up costing more than the actual event itself,
No doubt.
right? In actuality. Now, I would have thought he'd be like, listen, I never want to work with you again. However, because of the value I bring and one event doesn't determine, or one little campaign does not determine your success around a number of other items that you can
Right.
bring value or put on the table. I don't think he went to sleep or I think he went right home and slept like a baby because it was another, again, but that's a big company. It's not his budget. And then secondly, with we're going to be doing two more and then another one at the end of the year. So like in some cases where these problems, I think the problem piece is not always the only thing. And after serving 32 clients, and out of 32 clients, each business averaged, I would say, between 40 to 50 meetings over their trial period, more if they extended it. And some people, they did just buy just because they wanted it. It wasn't a problem. They just wanted, they had no assessment. And that's, but that is where mismanaged expectations come, because just because they want it, they think that you should fucking change the world for them.
Yeah, and what they want is often not what they need. It's what they think they need. And that causes problems. And if they're willing to spend money willy-nilly like that too, that's not a long-term or they're not gonna have a long customer lifetime. They generally just buy it. If it doesn't do exactly what they want to do, which they're not even sure what they want it to do, or it was just an idea to test something out, you're going to lose that customer within 3 months or whatever the trial period is, because they were just curious to see what would happen. And then that ends up hurting you in the end. They were missold.
Yeah.
And if you're looking to rely on customers like that, so be wary of the impulsive buyer. Almost every single time, the customer lifetime value on them is next to nothing.
I know. I told somebody piss off the other day, and I think they were shocked because honestly, he came into the meeting. He's one of these guys who is an investor. He's exited a few companies, so he thinks his fucking dick is 20 inches long. And he ended up like, I'm on the call and we're leading the conversation, started talking about what I do. And then I wanted to ask him a question or two, because that is what we do when we're trying to help you with your problem as a consultant, sales person, whatever you want to call it. And he's like, no, actually, let's focus back on you. First dickhead comment. So we carried on. And then again, I said, look, I just want to check. Are you aware of how much these events cost on an annual basis? These 100K spends. Do you have that to spend? Just so I know that if we continue this conversation, it's going to go in this direction or it's going to go in this direction. Either way is fine. And again, he said, I'm not ready to speak about budget. So I said, you know what? When you're ready to speak about budget, then we'll talk, because I don't feel like speaking to people like you. And I do not appreciate being belittled by people like you and you trying to dictate this call to me. And I do not need your money. And he goes, I think we should end the call. I said, duh.
Yeah. Power of saying no, because having a shit client is often more expensive.
Absolute nightmare. Yep.
Yeah, and they take up all your resources, so you can't serve other clients. So you start letting those clients go, and then they start getting pissed at you simply because you're not providing the service level that you agreed to in the first place, because this person's so far up your ass. Just because they're a large account doesn't mean that you want to even work with them in the first place.
I did that. And this company we worked with, no code automation company, you know who they are. We can't say their name on here, but they paid us in the 15 months of working together with them upwards of £200,000. Now, they were one of the first clients of the business. They did become the biggest or one of the biggest accounts back then. There's much bigger accounts now. However, there was 1 month where we had 6 clients and each client is worth £30,000 literally for the 2 to 3 months that they're with us. So you can imagine the revenue on that is every quarter, that's 200-300K. That's fucking huge. And because this client was so needy, and we looked at this client pays £20,000 per month, for example, but these 5 pay £8,000 a month. When this one client churned because they expect more than what they need, versus these clients who we could have naturally supported, maintained, and delivered for.
And when you deliver for it, their budget goes up too. They start paying you more.
Exactly. And that's what happened. We moved all of the attention. There was one point, I think you probably remember, in 2021, I had almost 15 people on the team. We made so much money I was sitting at an 82% profit margin. We had people from Israel. We had people from fucking India. We had people from the UK, the USA. We had people from Colombia. We had people in almost every single continent except for Russia. And, mate, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely crazy. We had to downsize that team faster than you could have imagined. And
In there.
that client ended up in a lawsuit and tried to screw us because they expected a 3x uplift to happen in 28 days.
3x in 28 days.
Yes.
So,
In
okay,
qualified
that's
sales
realistic.
meetings.
If you were working with a client that only had 1, maybe 2 clients, okay, maybe
Mhm,
that's possible.
mhm.
But in this
They had
case,
150
that's
clients.
batshit crazy.
They were nuts, and this was because they had built such a strong inbound engine, for so many years, and when COVID happened, it dried up. They had no idea how to hit outbound, and what did they come to find out? That the inbound leads, half of them were professors and students studying for fucking shit to do.
Exactly, and that's the problem. So part of RevOps, so moving back to that full circle,
Mhm,
if you don't know who's visiting your site, if you don't know who's coming inbound, if you don't know who's interested, you're seeing all of these vanity metrics. This is the volume of people. This is the number of emails. This is the number of phone calls, messages,
mhm,
whatever the hell else. It's all meaningless unless it converts, and it's all meaningless unless your content's getting in front of the right people. If you're doing content marketing, that your salespeople are getting
mhm,
in front of the right people who actually have an open budget, being able to actually shift your target market when the marketplace and the economy shifts. You may lose all of your customers in an industry that you consider one of your top core industries that you work with, but there's an industry that's adjacent to it that will work with you, and it's prime time for them because the economy shifted. So the unwillingness to switch ICPs with the change of the environment causes problems, but that has to be a data-driven decision. It can't be guessing because that's how you get a company to fold. It does not work. They have to be able to look at this from a factual or at least an angle that is well enough perceived to understand where you need to move rather than just saying, okay, well, let's try this one. Let's try this one. Because when you've made it as far as that company did, for example, and everything flip flops like that, you will have to lay off 80% of your employees if you didn't prepare for that event to happen, which they clearly did not.
Okay, so biggest learning, if we were to write something down for this little track or this segment on biggest learning, what's 2 words that would describe your biggest learning?
So me or you?
You.
So learning is
No, so alright, so just to add some context. So we spoke about the biggest failures are usually not putting the right processes in place before putting other things around it. And because of that, and things end up starting to take much longer, they cost more. And we learned something from that, which is what we just spoke about for the past 5-10 minutes. That
mhm.
learning in 2 words, how would you phrase that in 2 words? The biggest learning from those not putting processes in place, what
It
did
would
you
be
learn
3
from that?
words, and in
Go on.
this order: people, process, product.
Okay.
And the reason I say that, I know that's like a common saying, but I mean
Mhm.
legitimately in that order.
Okay. So if you were going to go tell Rob, the 18-year-old Rob, about people, process, and product at the age of 18, so he knew what to do for the next 20 years, what would you tell him?
So 18-year-old me, well, first off, if you want me to be totally honest, if I approached 18-year-old me, he'd tell me to fuck off.
No,
But
it doesn't
if he
matter
were to
because he
list
won't be able to say that.
right? But if he were to list, I would tell him honestly that your career path is not dictated by the education choices or by the paths that you've taken in the past. And delving into something of the unknown or an industry you've never been in or something that you don't believe that you have the specialization to do, it
Mhm,
can be learned, it can be done, and it does not matter where you were before because where you're going is dictated entirely up to you. For example, I have a BFA. I have a bachelor's in fine arts, for God's sakes. I went to school
mhm,
for graphic design, but I went to RIT, so it was very tech-based graphic design, UX, UI, all that stuff. I thought that my career path was a designer. I didn't like the work. It was nice at
Mhm.
first, but then you relinquish all of your freedom to become kind of like a slave in a way because of how overworked and underpaid you are. I was like, there's no money in this. I'm not happy here. What do I do? I wanted to
Mhm.
do something innovative in the data space, so I switched to that. And from that data work, working in advanced artificial intelligence, I was able to move into revenue operations consulting, business process optimization, monetization, all that fun stuff. But I would have never have thought that I would be in this position, knowing what I know, doing what I do in a million years. Even when I was working in AI, I never saw this coming, but it turned out that way because the needs that people presented to me and how my career path followed how I can help people most led to this point. So it was the openness and willingness to shift with what my talents can bring to the table to provide as much value as possible to the people around me and make the largest impact. That's why I'm on the board of a neuropsychology company, for God's sakes.
Has that's why we love you, Rob. And I think that is very, very important. Very, very important to
But yeah,
take
18-year-old
people.
me wouldn't know. Wouldn't he'd be like, okay, I'm going to be a designer, whatever. I'll just do the work, go to my 9 to 5, call it a day. It just wasn't what I thought it would be, but I was more entrepreneurial when I was younger than that. I mean, I owned my first company, technically when I was like 13, 12, 13,
Yeah.
something like that. And then I even had another company cleaning out attics for free, then selling that at that's always my first sales experience, selling it at flea markets. And I would find collectibles and actually trade with those. Then I started buying out, storage lockers, like Storage Wars, that show. I was doing that before it was cool, you know, and then selling that stuff. So it's like, I've always had that spirit, but I thought that you had to follow that standard path of going to school, learning a specific skill, and then that's your career for the rest of your life. And I wish I didn't have that mindset while I was in school because that slowed down my ability to evolve.
I am 100% with you there, Rob, because that is the truth. That is
Did you have a similar
100% the
experience
truth.
like that where you thought you had to?
Yep, because my dad told me, I will buy if you get accepted to Harvard, I'll buy you a Porsche. And I just could not get around to it. Like school was so boring and I was never good in school, never good. Up until the age of 17, I did not give a flying fuck about class. I wanted to just be popular because I was a British kid from England and it was my 4th year in America. So I went through 7th to 8th grade, which was middle school. That's where I learned to fit in and like become an American, but be good in school. Most of the kids in school were sitting on A's and B's. And then going into high school, it was very intimidating. It was like the movies for me. There was freshmen, sophomores, juniors and seniors, basketball teams, football teams, jocks.
Oh yeah, it's
Everything
really
was
like that. Yep.
it is exactly like that, and there was a lot of good kids that were really, really good in school. Me and, like, 1 or 2 other kids, we were, like, B's and C's, but it was a big thing, and then the SATs came around, and doing SATs was very different because if you didn't get a good score, you were embarrassed, and then coming to college and getting accepted into certain types of colleges, that was embarrassing if you didn't get accepted into a good college. And then everybody else goes to school and you don't go to school and you feel like a failure. And that is exactly what I felt like. That is exactly what I felt like. I didn't go to a good school. I went through a lot of stuff. Like I got bullied a little bit in college and I left that school. Um, I then went down to Florida and I fucked around down there for a good couple of months. My parents told me to come home because I wasted $10,000 on a credit card in like 4 months. Came home, screwed up my life completely. Like I said, you know the story, jail, prison, addiction, death in the family, removed, deported from a country, here alone, built my life from scratch. And the one thing that got me to where I am today, I can successfully say I've made over £1 million as a founder of a business. I ran it for 3 years. I've grew it to triple digit growth year on year. The two years I've done. Let's see what year 3 will be if it's a double digit growth year. And none of that came from a fucking college degree or any of that stuff. And I would say there is 98% of the kids that I went to school with. There's a 0.1%, but 98% of them are average Joes.
So this right here, this right here, RIT degree. This is
Yep.
a $380,000 piece of paper with a stamp that says you're good enough to work in a corporate environment. That's all this is.
Wow.
That's
Yep.
all it is. It's worthless. So it's like I always tell kids, you don't have to go to school. It's good if you need that type of environment to move forward and learn. It's also good for learning social skills and understanding how to become an adult. It's good for that. But as far as the education, I only use maybe 10% of what I learned in college for anything in the first place, and it's unrelated to what I do now. There's not even a school out there that can teach what I know with RevOps. There's barely even 5 other people who can. So it's like,
Well, of course, that makes complete
and that's
sense.
the thing, you're not going to learn what's going to move your career in a
Yep.
school.
You don't. You definitely don't. So last question. So one of the coaches that I worked with 2 years into my career, his name was Andy Shaw, and he is absolutely dynamite. The three letters that made the biggest impact in my life was WOT, and WOT stands for what one thing. And that what one thing in this pod is going to be, what's the one thing? And let's use AI because a big part of your life was revolved around AI. What's one thing that you could do or people could do today with AI to guarantee themselves $1 million in annual recurring revenue?
So
What should they do?
I'm a firm believer, there's the only guarantees of life are death and taxes, right?
Shut up. We
But
don't want to hear life or death for all that shit. I just want
what
to
you
know.
want to do, so using AI is an incredible tool, but a lot of people use it for the wrong reasons. They try to automate human action. Human action was
Mhm.
meant to be human. Don't use it for that. Use it for the right reasons, and not just the right reasons. What is it better at? It's meant to augment humans, not replace them unless it's a repetitive, mundane task. Like, and use it for analysis. Use it for analysis to understand and see intrinsic things that you could never see with the human eye, to learn what you cannot learn about whatever your business situation is, and being able to layer in predictive analytics. The only way to get predictable revenue is by understanding your business at a level that is absolutely absurdly deep. And that can only really be done with AI unless you want to spend, $15 million on data scientists every year.
Well, no. So look, think about it like this. So if say somebody you got a kid who's a sales guy, 20 to 30 years old, 30 to 40 years old, even. He has a 50 to 60,000 pound salary. Maybe he's topped up to 30 or 40 with 100K. He has a company that doesn't spend any money for him. Now he has LinkedIn. Let's say he buys Sales Navigator for himself. Let's say he gets a $20 subscription a month to ChatGPT. Let's say he buys Apollo and can acquire data, sequence his outreach. That's about 100 quid, right? About $150 or so. Now, with his AI, he has a specific target. Let's give 15 to 20K a month. And he has to get all his leads are cold, researches his own leads, has to do that. What can he use AI for within that motion to guarantee him hitting his target, and or a business owner or an individual, if they are able to achieve those types of numbers, what can they use AI for to hit that million in revenue
So with that specific tech
annually?
stack, I would say it's understanding the people, who the people are, and researching the people before you reach out to them. Because each salesperson spends approximately 5 minutes doing research on a specific target individual before they reach out to them. You could speed that up and
Mhm.
get that summed up. And I would actually recommend layering in a technology called Humantic.ai. What
Yeah, but
that
can they
is,
afford that? How much is how much is, remember, you got to think about people's budgets. How much, and
30
these are
bucks a month, brother.
individuals. $30 a month for Humatics. I'm gonna buy it after this call.
Yeah, I'll send you a link so that you can get a trial. I work with them as one of their partners because I love what they do.
Mhm.
But think about this. Remember the psychometric analytical type of AI that I did?
Yeah, tell
This
me
is
how
a
it works.
different
Let's see.
perspective on it. You know the like Crystal Knows?
Mhm.
So think about my tech plus Crystal Knows, except they did it the right way versus Crystal Knows, which I'm not trying to talk shit, but it's not accurate. Uh, it's taking all of their social profile and things that are written on them. You can even upload documentation of like emails back and forth that you have with them for communications and stuff. And then it's able to look at what their disk profile is. It's able to determine their oceans profile. That's with about it's somewhere between like 74 to 80 something percent accuracy. Then it's going to tell you
Jesus
what type of
Christ.
communication. if your personality aligns with theirs, so should you reach out to them in the first place? Because a high D can't sell to a C because you're gonna freaking bulldoze
Yep.
them. That's why, right? So it's
Yep.
able to
Yep.
look at all
Yep.
of that, and you can build lists from Apollo, let's say, that are specific to personality type and build outreach and forms of communication, methods, styles, and length, amount of detail that fits that personality type. You will see a significant increase in your response rates. You'll see a significant increase in your success rates, and you'll be able to know which personalities to stay away from, because selling to them is a waste of your time because you'll bulldoze them.
This is what the fuck I'm talking about. So, okay, Rob, question for you and people who watch this show. Let's see if they will take value in this, because I think that's huge. So realistically, for $50 a month, you could change the way you sell. Would you be open to sharing that with our audience? Maybe walking through a screen share. We'll do a 20-minute screen share, show them how it works, and then let's see what people can
I'd be
get out
happy
of
to
it.
do
It'd be
so,
great
man.
to hear.
That's totally fine. And then also,
All right.
I could send you the not right now though.
I don't want anything. Yeah, I don't want anything. No, not right now. We'll plan it. So I think maybe even tomorrow or the next day we'll get I'll get a license. I've already got Apollo, and then maybe we'll do a quick session, show people like how to leverage AI from real salespeople to increase your revenue by 2x, 3x.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. So look, Rob, that is it for the podcast. I'm going to have to wrap it up because we're approaching that time. It was great to have you. I think we got a load of stuff covered in this podcast, and I'm really, really impressed with the content. I'm actually meeting somebody quite great, quite interesting tonight, so that would be good. So these will probably be released in the next few weeks. For whoever is watching, if you comment, like, subscribe, share this channel if you like what's being talked about. If you want to know certain things that you want to, there are certain things that you want to know. Please do hit us up, put it in the comments, send me a message. I'm on Redline Podcast,
Or you can look me up if you just type
LinkedIn.
in the RevOps Hitman. I will pop up pretty much first in
Yeah,
everything.
that's what I was going to do. So after that, Rob, I was going to say, and Rob, how do they find you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, it's just the LinkedIn URL and then the-RevOps-Hitman. Or you can email me at rob@revopshitmanconsulting.co. That's the
Awesome. All right, Rob, thank you very much. Don't leave. I'm just going to end the channel now. I'm going to end the actual recording, and then I'll speak to you again for a minute. Thanks, guys, for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.